Hi, I'm Chris Nesi from the House of EdTech Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Milletto. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. With Dr. Steve Milletto.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here. And today I'm focused on Mediocrity Part 4, and it's titled, Not in These Classes. All right, so over the years, I've experienced mediocrity. Colleagues or peers who've allowed meh or that's just okay to grow and infest. But also along the way, I have experienced teachers and administrators, educators who did not allow at all mediocrity to be the way things are done. Instead, just the opposite. They created classes and buildings that encourage curiosity, creativity, and engagement. Time planning, collaboration, and a willingness to fail were the guiding forces to assist their success. Our focus today are those peers and colleagues who were creating worlds where kids would be challenged, encouraged, and emboldened to identify, seek, and achieve their dreams. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start with is a special education teacher. He was awesome. He worked with some of the kids with some of the most challenging behavioral and developmental needs, but he didn't see it that way. He saw it as a challenge to him to figure out how to create the environment in which those kids could be successful. And this is where he created the coolest menagerie of creatures that it was just awesome. He had aquariums and terrariums. He had a giant pond. He had all kinds of cool stuff in this room. In these aquariums were everything from small schooling fish all the way up to fingerling catfish that he got from the state. The terrariums contain little creatures like spiders and centipedes, scorpions, and others. He had an indoor pond that he constructed and added large goldfish to, and little plants and stuff like that in the water as well. It was the coolest thing. He had live plants throughout the room. The lighting was soothing. The bubbling, gurgling, and hum of air pumps was so relaxing. To go with all these sounds and creatures, he also had a few furry friends, like gerbils and hamsters, and my all-time favorite, a chinchilla. If you've never held a chinchilla, they are the coolest critters ever. They're soft and furry, and they like to be held. And so they'll just sit there and let you pet them. Very cool. The kids enjoyed this environment. They worked for this teacher. They learned from this teacher. Their emotions were under control, and they were engaged. Kids wanted to help with the upkeep of the room. So they'd show up during their breaks. They'd show up during their lunch. They'd come after school, and they'd ask what they could do to help. And these were some of the most challenging kids. But this teacher was able to work with them and get them to work for him. So cool. Never forget this. This is the most awesome classroom I think I've ever seen in my life. All right, so let's switch gears and let's talk about two English teachers. Two English teachers who were focused on raising the vocabulary and reading capabilities of their students. They created Saturdays at Starbucks or Dunkin's, whichever one was available for that weekend. They bought books, these novels, and they talked to their students. So between their two classes, they would get students to come in. They didn't require them to be there. They just let the parents know that this is what we're going to be doing and we're going to be working on this. And they need to read these books ahead ahead of time. We'll go chapter to chapter, and we're going to be focused on teaching them vocabulary, raising their vocabulary levels, and their comprehension of these stories, and be able to have discussions about these stories. The kids read the books and came to the Saturdays ready to discuss. They boosted their vocabulary, they learned reading comprehension skills, and they boosted their ability to comprehend what they were reading. And I think they found a new love for novels, because this was an ongoing thing, and the kids were disappointed if it couldn't happen on a Saturday. The kids looked forward to these Saturdays and to these teachers' classes. Isn't that cool? No meh there. No meh in that special ed room. All right, so now let's talk about an administrator. This was a principal who created a school that encouraged collaboration and the development of interdisciplinary projects and activities. The teachers were teamed in the 9th and 10th grade. They were taught and received professional training in how to work as a team, how to develop interdisciplinary activities, and how to be facilitators while encouraging the students to be the workers. The teams worked together. The adults talked to one another and shared ideas and developed plans together. Oh, this was so cool. They actually used their planning periods for planning. The kids were engaged with this. The more they saw the collaboration of the teachers, the more they wanted to work together with the adults to participate in these activities, these interdisciplinary activities. I mean, part of these teams, what it is that you have a science teacher, a math teacher, a social studies teacher, an English teacher, and if they were a special education team, they had a special education teacher. And they worked together to create opportunities for the kids to work together and learn and push that learning. And the key to this was the whole idea that in too many classes and too many places, you know, what happens is that the teacher's the worker. The teacher's the one who stands up there and talks. You know, here's the assignment, do the assignment. Now I'm going to talk some more. And I'm going to show you this and I'm going to demonstrate that. Well, that's teacher as worker. We need teacher as facilitator. The idea that the teacher shares and then the kids come up with the plans to address and complete the activity. So awesome. They created powerful lessons, and the kids wanted to work for them. And the teachers wanted to work for that principal because it was an amazing place to be. All right, so let's talk about a science teacher now. He was also a cross-country coach, and as a cross-country coach, he needed to have his CDL license so he could drive the bus to and from the events that they needed to go to. And that system made sure that each high school had 1 or 2 buses that they kept on their campus. And so he was a bus driver also. You know, he had that license and was able to drive his kids. So keep that thought in mind. He created learning opportunities for students that required parent permission so they could go on learning field trips. Now, I like this a lot because, you know, a lot of times what we call field trips are just things they just kind of spend the day somewhere. Well, this is not what he was doing. And for example, one of my all-time favorite ones that he did was in his class, they were learning about erosion. And so what he had done was he had gone out into the community and found these areas that he staked out, and he focused on the erosion that was happening there, what caused the erosion and the impact of the areas around it. And then he had the kids answer questions and create solutions. And so these were all around in that community of where that school was. They didn't have to go to some national park or state park or something like this. They were right there in their community looking at erosion and then coming up with solutions. Kids wanted to be in his classes. And by the way, as a result of how engaging his classes were, his cross-country team grew and grew and grew because he welcomed all kids. And they all wanted to be on his teams because he took an interest in making sure that they all were successful. What an awesome teacher. Good stuff. Notice, no meh here. It's not just okay in that class. All right, so let's switch to mathematics. Yeah. This math teacher created engaging classroom activities and lessons that develop math-focused students. He grew their capabilities. He encouraged them to want to know how. He took time to create real-world problems. They would go outside the building, inside the building, different places within the campus, where he would have some of his activities laid out for them to use mathematics to figure out the solution. And his different activities led him to his weekend use of the computer labs. Yeah, this teacher on his own time would come in on the weekends. He would schedule the use of the computer lab. And weekends sometimes meant Friday evenings, sometimes meant Saturdays, and sometimes meant Sundays as well. And the kids would volunteer to be there. And he would be doing these math exercises and teaching them these different computer skills to help them come up with the solutions to whatever the challenge was that he had them facing. The kids would fill the lab. In the beginning, we had to make sure we got some things balanced out, because in the beginning, one of the things that was happening was that he would set off the alarms, and he didn't realize that that's what he was doing. And that's when we met with him and said, okay, look, we just need you to use the calendar and schedule it with us so we can make sure that you're able to get in the building without setting off the alarms, which we did. These kids looked forward to these classes and his challenging lessons. His focus grew our number of kids who went on to be successful in post-secondary school, and it grew the number of kids who wanted to take advanced math in our school. Most importantly, he dramatically increased our graduation rate, opening choices galore for the directions the students took after high school. Once again, no meh. No, it's just okay. All right, so we're going to switch and talk about a band director and an orchestra director. And they worked together awesome. They were like two fraternity brothers or something like that. Two best friends is definitely what they were. And they had a gift. And that gift was to make music cool. Now, lots of times people think music's cool already, but in schools, it has to become a thing, right? Because they've got to be willing to carry that instrument around the campus. They got to be able to go from one place to another, carry it on a bus, carry it home, bring it back to school. Well, their gift led to creating programs that were successful, that made kids want them to be in them, and grow programs that were so broken prior to them arriving. One of the things that they did was they used their professional networks. These professional musicians that they knew, they reached out to them and they created these workshops on weekends to come into their schools. And these weren't just regular workshops. They did overnight, spend the night in the gym type activities where they had fun and brought them together to work together and learn their instruments. And at that sleepover, they had these professional musicians working with the kids, helping them get better at the instruments that they've chosen. That's cool. They grew the capabilities of the kids enormously. If they were already skilled at music, they became better. If they had no skills or were anywhere in between, they found success and wanted to stay with the programs. The band director had a sense of humor that the kids enjoyed. One kid said this, he said, "He's truly funny. He makes me want to be part of the band." An orchestra student said, "I didn't play anything. He taught me how to play the guitar, and now I'm performing in the orchestra playing a cello and learning the violin. He makes me want to learn more." Isn't that cool? The band and orchestra director, they worked together, and with the choral director, they were able to create musical opportunities for the students that challenged their capabilities and made them want to know more. They repaired and grew music programs that seemed to be just completely busted or beyond repair. They made them fun, challenging, engaging, and successful. They opened doors for the students beyond the high school into post-secondary and beyond. Pretty cool, huh? All these teachers I've shared today, and the principal, they're just a few of the many who have done so much for kids and helping them achieve their dreams. The problem is that some of us are stuck in meh. We're stuck in, it's okay. It's just acceptable, whatever it is that we're doing. It's just mediocre land. And that's unfortunate because this is my 39th year in public education. I've worked with many educators over that time. And today I've shared a few of some of the most dynamic. And there are more, many more. I wanted to start with these stories to share that mediocrity doesn't have to be the norm. It doesn't have to be allowed to fester. But it does require time, planning, collaboration, and a willingness to fail and learn from that failure so that you can try and keep trying again. Don't give in to mediocre. Don't give in to, it's just okay. Take time to think about what would make your classes, what would make your school, what would make your work environment exciting. What would make what you do something that others want to participate in? When you're working with those students, what are you going to be doing to make them want to be in your class? To make them want to work for you? To make them want to know more? Well, it takes time, and it takes planning. It takes collaboration, and it takes that willingness to fail. Don't settle for meh. Don't settle for it's just okay. And stay away from mediocrity. Don't go to that land. Hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. Oh, by the way, before you go, it'd be so cool if you helped out the podcast. How could you do that? Glad you asked. Here are 3 ways you could help the podcast. 1, tell a friend and share links. 2, go to my website and leave a review and subscribe. And 3, click on the link on my website homepage to buy me a coffee. And by doing this, you could donate $1 or $2 to help me address the costs associated with producing the podcast. That would be so cool. You are awesome. Take care. Hey, you have been listening to Teaching Learning Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching Learning Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.